Imagine sitting down to write your autobiography, right?
Yeah.
And you decide to title the very first chapter, Why I Am So Wise.
Oh, yeah, just right out of the gate with that.
Right. And then the next chapter, Why I'm So Clever. And just to really round out the humility, you title the third chapter, Why I Write Such Good Books.
It is just so wildly arrogant.
It really is. So today, we are opening the pages of the Turkish translation of Friedrich Nietzsche's autobiography, Ecce Homo, which is Ecce Homo, Kişi nasıl kendisi olur. The title basically translates to how one becomes what one is.
Right.
And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the mind of one of history's most provocative thinkers, right as he reviews his entire life's work.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, here is the profound hovering tragedy over all of this.
Yeah.
He wrote these wildly arrogant, brilliant pages just weeks before his complete and final mental collapse.
Which just creates this unbelievable tension for you as a reader. I mean, you are holding a text that is entirely unique in the history of philosophy. It's a man standing at the absolute edge of a cliff, looking back at his own footprints, and just deciding that every single misstep, every agony, was flawless.
Okay, let's unpack this, because reading this text is honestly, it's like sitting at a table listening to your most brilliant but totally eccentric friend giving a wildly unfiltered toast to themselves at their own birthday party.
That is exactly what it feels like.
It is shocking, it's funny, but right when you think they're just, hopelessly delusional, they hit you with a psychological insight that stops you dead in your tracks.
Yeah.
He is throwing a party for his own genius, but he makes a point to mention that nobody else has shown up to the party yet.
Exactly. He knows he's entirely unrecognized. He states early on that he lives on his own credit, that his contemporaries haven't heard him, haven't even really seen him.
Wow.
Yeah, he is writing this book to basically grab the reader by the collar and say, listen, I am so-and-so. Above all, do not mistake me for someone else.
So you would naturally assume a guy claiming to be a historical destiny, right? A guy with these lofty, world-shaking ideas would credit his genius to, I don't know, deep theology or divine inspiration.
Right, you'd think so.
But we move from these massive claims of being a destiny to his explanation for his brilliance, and it is surprisingly physiological. Like he credits his digestion.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how Nietzsche completely demolishes the wall between the mind and the body.
Okay.
To him, philosophy isn't just this abstract thought floating in the ether. It is deeply, inextricably biological. Like the gut and the brain are one system.
I have to be honest, I really struggled to take this part seriously when I first read it.
Yeah.
Because he goes on this massive rant against the 19th century German diet.
Oh, the diet rant is amazing.
So specific.
Oh,
He's blaming overcooked meats, heavy pastries, meals that start with soup, which is just funny, and drinking beer, for ruining German intestines. He literally blames this diet for sluggish, quote, German thinking. I mean, is he genuinely deflecting from his own philosophical frustrations by blaming a bowl of soup?
I know it sounds absurd to modern ears, but until you look at the mechanism he's describing, think about the biological energy required for digestion, right?
Okay.
If your metabolism is constantly weighed down by heavy, greasy food and alcohol, your body naturally diverts its resources to processing that mass. Your blood flow, your vital energy is all just trapped in your intestines. So from Nietzsche's perspective, if your body is heavy and sluggish, your thoughts will inevitably be heavy, sluggish, and pessimistic.
So it's basically an energy allocation problem. Like if the gut is working overtime, the brain is starving.
Exactly. And that is why he emphasizes climate so heavily, too.
Right? He talks about the air.
Yeah, he favors the dry air of places like Turin or Provence or Jerusalem. He argues that genius depends on dry air and clear skies because they allow for a fast metabolism and rapid intellectual energy.
That is wild.
And he strictly drank water, avoiding alcohol entirely. He even claimed a single glass of wine turned his life into a hell. Just one glass.
Yep. He prefers Piedmontese cuisine because it's lighter and demands, less physiological tax on the body.
But the irony here is just glaring. Because he is lecturing us on achieving this biological perfection, but the man was notoriously sick.
Oh, incredibly sick.
He suffered from severe ailments, crippling migraines that lasted for days, vomiting, near blindness.
Yeah, but that paradox is actually the core of his method. He viewed his severe illness not as a curse, but as an ultimate diagnostic tool.
Wait, how does being bedridden with a migraine help you diagnose anything?
Because of the contrast it provides. When he was at his lowest physical point, he says he was forced to observe healthy, optimistic concepts from the perspective of the sick.
Oh, I see.
He learned what it actually feels like to be biologically defeated. And as he recovered, he could look down into the secret, pessimistic workings of sickness from the height of health.
Wow.
This constant physiological shifting up and down, sick and healthy, that was his ultimate training in perspectivism. A truly healthy person, he argues, uses illness as a stimulant for more life. Which is, I guess, where that famous whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger concept actually finds its roots.
Precisely.
So, if diet and climate protect the physical body's energy, we really have to look at how he protected his mind. Because he was obsessed with maintaining extreme independence.
Yes.
And his methods for cognitive defense are just as severe. Like, for instance, he argues vehemently against reading early in the morning.
Oh, he hates morning reading. He considers it a reactive habit, and to him, being reactive is a cardinal sin for a thinker.
It sounds like he treats his mind like an exclusive VIP club.
Yeah.
You don't just let any random thought walk through the door, especially not first thing in the morning when the mind is fresh and impressionable.
I love that. And to take your VIP club analogy further, Nietzsche isn't just bouncing the bad thoughts at the door. He's keeping the club completely empty until noon so he can hear his own music playing, rather than letting some random 19th century historian hijack the DJ booth.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If you wake up and the very first thing you do is read someone else's book, you're instantly reacting to their framework.
Right, because the morning brain is a blank slate. If a scholar just spends their freshest hours turning pages, reading hundreds of books, their instinct for self-defense is ruined.
They just become a vessel.
Exactly. They lose the ability to initiate original thought. They are just responding. And this actually ties directly into his highly controversial take on virtues like pity and selflessness.
Right, he really goes after pity. He argues that selflessness is actually a weakness, like a draining of vital energy.
Yeah, society tells you that being selfless and feeling deep pity for the suffering of others are the highest goods.
Sure.
But Nietzsche flips that entirely upside down. He champions a profound, selective selfishness.
I can hear people bristling at that. I mean, it sounds incredibly cold.
It does sound cold, but look at the mechanism of pity. Pity makes you lose your sense of distance.
What do you mean?
Well, if you have a massive life mission, if you believe you are gestating a genius that will change the course of human history, you cannot afford to have your energy vampirized by every passing tragedy.
Oh.
You have to build a wall around yourself. For someone with a heavy destiny, protecting their cognitive and emotional energy isn't cruelty. It's the highest form of self-preservation.
That's a huge reframe.
Right. To him, selflessness is an instinct of decline because it means you are giving away the resources you need to build something great.
And this intense isolation, this fierce selfish protection of his energy, is what resulted in his absolute masterpiece, Thus Spoke Zarathustra.
Yes.
A book he quite literally considered humanity's greatest gift. And what stands out in Ecce Homo is the sheer physicality of how he wrote it. Like, he wasn't hunched over a desk in a dusty library.
Not at all. The physicality is so central to the text. He describes inspiration not as a gentle, quiet whisper, but as a lightning strike.
A lightning strike.
Yeah, a tempest of freedom, where words and metaphors just forcefully offer themselves up to him. He came up with the core concept of the book, the eternal return, while walking by the lake of Silvaplana in Switzerland.
Right, he was outside.
He literally notes it came to him 6,000 feet beyond man and time. And he composed the rest while dancing and hiking in the mountains of the Riviera for like 7 or 8 hours a day.
See, here's where it gets really interesting. Because out of all this walking and dancing comes his concept of the overman, or Üstünson in the Turkish translation.
Right.
And he spends a good chunk of this autobiography practically tearing his hair out over how completely misunderstood this concept was by his contemporaries. They mistook it for some Darwinian biological evolution, or worse, some kind of fascist hero worship.
And that is a crucial distinction for you, the listener, to grasp, especially given how history misused his work later. The Overman isn't a biological evolution. It is a psychological liberation. The Overman is someone who has overcome the need for external false comforts, someone who creates their own values, who is light on their feet, who dances over the ruins of old, dead moralities.
It's about freedom.
Exactly. Zarathustra's ultimate task is to smash the old tables of values so new ones can be written.
But the tragedy of this is just overwhelming when you think about it. He writes what he believes is the most profound book in human history. about a being of ultimate self-mastery and biological perfection. He writes it in a state of sheer euphoric inspiration.
Yeah.
And the moment it hits the public, it is completely misinterpreted. And worse, he is writing all of this right as his own brain is physically dissolving. The tension between his philosophical ideal and his biological reality is just heartbreaking.
It is the ultimate tragic irony. Imagine the frustration of having your greatest achievement, the thing you poured your entire soul and remaining physical energy into, completely misinterpreted by your peers simply because you were thinking centuries ahead of them.
Unbelievable.
He says in the text that having people simply read him is asking too much. They have to have the ears to hear him. And if they haven't lived through similar depths of suffering and isolation, they simply lack the ears.
Which means if Zarathustra's job was to build a new system of values, he first had to clear the land. And to Nietzsche, the biggest, oldest structure blocking that land was traditional morality.
Right.
Which naturally leads to Nietzsche proclaiming himself the first immoralist. Now, just a quick heads up for you listening, Nietzsche uses a sledgehammer here on traditional morality and Christianity.
He really does.
And we're not here to co-sign his views or take sides. Our job today is just to map out the blast radius of the philosophical dynamite he's throwing in this text. We're just impartially exploring what he wrote.
And dynamite is exactly the word he uses for himself. He views traditional Christian morality as a decadent lie. He claims it was a massive psychological conspiracy invented by the weak, specifically the priests, to suppress the strong, the healthy, and the natural.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
How exactly does a moral system suppress biology in his view?
Well, by taking humanity's most natural, life-affirming instincts, so pride, ambition, physical vitality, desire, and labeling them as sins.
Wow, okay.
He argues that the concepts of salvation and the afterlife were constructed to make people despise their actual physical earthly lives.
So they're waiting for something better.
Exactly. By elevating weakness, self-denial, and suffering as holy, he believes traditional morality poisoned human potential. It basically convinced the lion to feel guilty for having teeth.
That is a wild image. He goes so far as to claim that the so-called good people are actually the most harmful people of all, because they blindly perpetuate this lie of selflessness and turn humanity against its own nature.
Yes.
So, what does this all mean? When he calls himself an immoralist, is he just handing out a license to be a monster? Is he advocating for ruthless cruelty?
See, that is the most common and dangerous misunderstanding of his work. If we connect this to the bigger picture, he isn't advocating for mindless cruelty or sociopathy. Right. He actually believes he is performing a rescue mission for humanity.
A rescue mission with a sledgehammer.
Precisely. You have to destroy the false idols to make room for a higher, more truthful existence. He calls himself an immoralist because he believes what society currently calls moral is actually anti-life. He isn't destroying just to watch things burn. He is clearing the rot to make way for new growth.
And to see this philosophical dynamite in action, we really just have to look at the specific targets he attacks in this book. He goes incredibly hard after his former idol, the composer Richard Wagner, and his own country, Germany.
He does not hold back.
Reading this section isn't just academic. It honestly feels like watching a high-profile celebrity breakup play out, but with world historical philosophical stakes.
The falling out with Wagner deeply wounded him, but logically it was inevitable. Early on, Nietzsche loved Wagner. He believed Wagner's music, especially the opera Tristan and Isolde, embodied the true Dionysian spirit.
Let's unpack that term Dionysian for a second. What exactly did that mean to him?
So, the Dionysian spirit is about raw, chaotic, passionate, life-affirming energy. It embraces the beauty and the terror of existence without trying to sanitize it.
Okay.
Nietzsche felt that the early Wagner captured this perfectly.
Yeah, he says, the first chord of Tristan makes the mysteries of Leonardo da Vinci lose their magic. He was completely under the spell. So what actually caused the rift?
Wagner wrote a later opera called Parsifal. And in Parsifal, Wagner embraced themes of Christian redemption, chastity, and pity.
Cool.
To Nietzsche, this wasn't just a change in musical style. It was a total betrayal of life itself.
Right.
Wagner had succumbed to the very morality Nietzsche was trying to destroy. Wagner had become a decadent.
And Nietzsche does not hold back on Germany either. It wasn't just Wagner he felt alienated from. It was his entire culture.
Yes!
He unleashes a scathing critique of the German people, accusing them of lacking psychological depth and being hypocritical idealists. But more than that, he blames them for perpetuating what he calls the national neurosis of anti-Semitism and petty nationalist politics.
He absolutely hated the small-minded nationalism that was rising in the German state. He wanted to be a good European, someone who transcended borders and petty tribalism.
Right.
His break with Wagner and his rejection of Germany were his ultimate acts of intellectual independence. He had to sever ties with the things and people he once loved deeply in order to remain true to his own dangerous philosophical path.
Which brings us to the ultimate question of his life. How does a guy who has alienated his closest friends, rejected his own country, declared a one-man war on traditional morality, and isolated himself on top of a mountain find any peace?
It's a great question.
How does he live with himself, knowing his brain is failing and no one understands him? The answer he gives is his ultimate concept, amor fati.
Amor fati, the love of fate.
He defines human greatness as this exact concept. It means not wanting anything to be different. Not in the past, not in the future, not for all eternity. It is the ultimate total acceptance of one's life. And when you look at his life, the brutal migraines, the vomiting, the complete misunderstanding by his peers, the crushing isolation, the fact that he could look at all of that and say, I want nothing to be different, is staggering.
It is a radical, almost terrifying acceptance. He says it is not enough to merely endure necessity. You can't just grit your teeth and bear it.
Yeah.
And you certainly shouldn't conceal it. You have to love it. Every painful step, every betrayal by Wagner, every agonizing illness was a necessary, unavoidable ingredient in creating the genius he became. If you remove the sickness, you remove the insight.
I want you listening to really think about that for your own life. Like, how radically empowering is that mindset?
It's huge.
Instead of wishing things were different, instead of dwelling on regrets or the unfair hands you were dealt, what if you wholly embraced your exact circumstances? What if you looked at every struggle, every boring Tuesday, every failure, not as a curse, but as a strictly necessary part of your own personal greatness?
It shifts you instantly from being a passive victim of your circumstances to being the author of them. And this raises an important question, actually, a thought experiment I want to leave you with that builds on this idea of amor fati and his concept of the eternal return.
Oh, the idea he came up with 6,000 feet up in the mountains.
Exactly. Imagine for a moment that Nietzsche's concept were a literal physical reality. Imagine if tonight a demon crept into your loneliest loneliness and told you that you had to live this exact life you are living right now, with every joy, every mundane commute, every frustrating meeting, and every profound pain over and over again in the exact same sequence for all eternity.
Just an endless loop, nothing new, just the exact same life infinite times.
Yes. Would that thought completely crush you? Would you throw yourself down onto the floor and curse the demon? Or would it be the ultimate liberation? Would it force you, starting today, to finally make choices and live a life you actually want to repeat?
Wow. It makes you look at your daily choices in a completely different light.
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, is this a day I would want to live 1 billion times over?
Exactly.
It's intense, but it cuts right through the noise. And it brings us right back to that table, to that eccentric friend giving a wildly arrogant toast to themselves at their own birthday party.
It all comes full circle.
It sounds crazy at first, but when you realize they are toasting not just their triumphs, but their deepest agonies, their sickness, and their utter isolation, because all of it made them exactly who they are, well, you might just find yourself raising a glass with them. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.